Hey everyone, it's Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial. We are here in Detroit, Michigan at Realize Live 2025, which is really the biggest show around digital transformation presented by Siemens. Now, we look at the future of software technology. There's a lot of cool things to talk about, and that's why I'm here with Bernd, who is the Director of R&D Factory Automation here in the U.S.
Hi, Jake.
It's great to have you again. We talked last year in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
and some things have changed, including your title.
Yes.
So before we dive into what's happening on the Siemens side, let's talk about why the new title, why this new role.
All right. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Exciting to be back. It's also interesting for me. So I'm working now for 29 years, and I started in R&D, really developing products, doing a lot of that stuff for 9 years, also engineering, really building machines and all of these things before I came into product management, and later on also into the marketing and development, which marketing product management here in the US. So for me, it's now exciting with all the knowledge about the US market, staying in the US, but going back into R&D and taking all the knowledge, everything I learned over the years now, talking to all the customers and really developing the next generation of products. And it's also exciting because our R&D center in Johnson City, Tennessee, we have it for more than 25 years now. So Siemens acquired in '92 from Texas Instruments, basically the automation part, automation division, also with the TI 505 and all the other PLCs. But the team continued to develop a lot of things over the years. And for example, one example is the micro PLCs with the 7200 and 1200. And by now, we sold over 25 million of these PLCs globally.
Wow, 25 million.
Yeah. And all of that has been developed here in the US for the global market. So on the one side, we are just launching the 7100 G2. We just launched it. So we have a next generation of a micro PLC with even more motion functionality and capabilities overall. And at the same time, the teams are also working on new products like Thematic AX. And also the VPLC, virtual PLC, is also parts of it is developed in Johnson City here in the US. So this is really exciting for me, taking all the knowledge about edge AI, all the new topics, going into R&D, being able to work with the colleagues together and develop the next generation of automation products here in the US. So that's really exciting.
And that's exciting. So when you look at being in the R&D side, obviously you're getting feedback from all of these people in the industry on what new solutions they're looking for, what new features they want with the current products that they have. What are some of the biggest surprises that you're hearing from the industry that might not be of the norm when it comes to driving new digital solutions on the factory floor?
I think I think a lot of ideas and concepts come from the IT itself, but when you still have to make sure it fits to the factory floor, it fits to automation. Yeah? So things, for example, with fail fast, learn about it. You can do it if you design a website and you make a change and something doesn't work. Okay, when a website maybe doesn't work for 5 minutes. If you make a change and the robot crashes, this is a totally different thing. So I think we can take the concepts itself, but we still have to adapt them to automation, to manufacturing industry, and make sure it works in these environments as well. And so I have some colleagues coming out of R&D, maybe have less knowledge about automation itself, but of course a lot of knowledge about software development and all of these things. And maybe there are some ideas that you cannot take like directly one-to-one. You have to tweak it a little bit and adjust it to make sure it really fits to automation and is good for an automation customer.
I love that. And the most interesting thing was that you're saying a lot of this is being driven by IT, which I always think is interesting because when we were going out there and we were wanting to deploy new technology on the floor, it always seemed like IT was our biggest resistance when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Why do you think we're seeing so much of a interest and demand coming from the IT side of things on the floor?
No, I think it's on the one side interest from the IT side, but also just leveraging concepts that are around in the IT space for a long time. And I think at the end of the day, it really starts with to do things differently. So everyone talks about reshoring, bringing automation back to the US. But at the same time, if you want to bring automation back to the US, you cannot do it exactly the same way it was when it left the US, and same in Europe as well. Yeah? So you have to do things differently. And I think one of the key elements is really to make sure you reduce your time to market, you increase your flexibility, and you can just react quicker to changing market demands. So this is one key element. And in the past, when a factory was running, it was like, oh, best thing is never to change anything. But of course, if you never change anything, you also have never an improvement of your current line and everything that's running. So on the one side, I want to have current improvements of my production, but at the same time, I want to have as little risk as possible that something fails. And now it's a question, how can we use, for example, DevOps and all these agile developments in a way to increase the functionality and efficiency of a production line while still minimizing any risk that something goes down. So I think this is really taking IT concepts, but then making sure it really fits to the automation world, to the automation space, and it doesn't mess everything up. Yeah.
So I love that topic where if you want to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., you can't do it the same way it left. What are some of the big things that we need to do differently in manufacturing? What are things that manufacturers need to change, maybe on the digital side, if they want to bring jobs and manufacturing back to America?
Okay, so maybe, and this is a real customer example. We are talking to one customer in the past, or up to now, he had like one factory for every of his products. And basically this one factory produced the product globally for everywhere, and then it got shipped around. So now in future, with a new situation, with all the tariffs and changing environment overall, he wants to have the capability in every factory to develop, to produce every product. So instead of having one factory that's really highly optimized on manufacturing one product, you need to have every factory being capable of producing every product. But then in turn also means you have to switch back and forth between different products. And the next thing is you want to have this switching back and forth. You still want to minimize the cost of a product while you're producing it. So it's not just having multiple lines and a lot of switchover times and all of that. You need to have a very flexible production where you basically have all kinds of different stations and you can do almost all the products at the same time and still minimize the cost you have. So, and that brings in things like AGVs and AMRs and robotics, brings in flexible production overall, brings in also AI. So maybe if you have different products, then you don't even need to change your code anymore in a PLC, because maybe with AI, a robot is intelligent enough to know, okay, that he can handle different products anyway. So that's something, for example, we do with our robot bin picking, where a camera looks down at the different products and then figures out what is the best spot to pick it. And the AI never has seen the product before. And that just increases the flexibility, these types of approaches. And that really helps to set up a factory that is as cost efficient as possible, but also as flexible as possible, just to take care of all the different products you want to produce and want to manufacture here in the US.
I love that. Yeah, and it's a necessity to look at it from that perspective as well. I think a lot of times we get so focused on the old way of doing things, we don't look at and we get so focused specific down to a specific product. A lot of times we don't see the whole picture. And I think one of the things that's changing is on that software automation side. I remember walking around and looking at some of the different sessions that are happening here in Detroit this week, and it's like standing room only at a lot of these centers. And some of the centers are talking about when it comes to software automation. I know you have a session later today as well that you're highlighting in this stuff. So when we look at the future of software automation, where do we see some of the biggest changes happening when it comes to the new features and technology that's being provided? And then what is the best way that we're seeing that companies can begin to leverage that type of technology?
All right. So there are a lot of things you can do. Maybe let's start with an engineering environment. So for example, we introduced Thematic AX, which is based on Visual Studio Code and very good to use also for all the students, computer science majors and everyone else coming out of university, because we all learn like Python with Visual Studio Code. But one of the key elements with this approach is also that you have a Git integration. You can have a versioning, you can create maybe your core product, your core code of a machine is like one product and you keep it stable.
Mm-hmm.
If you fix an issue, when you can also deploy it later onto all the machines in the field. And then at the same time with Git, and you have a possibility that multiple people in various locations, various states work on the same code at the same time. And when you merge all the code together, and so you have a broader community of people who work on the same code. Because in the past, it was really like, okay, I take the code from my last machine, I would make a copy, and then I program my next machine, and then I program my next machine. And when I end up suddenly with so many tens, hundreds of sort of similar machines, but every machine has its own code. And this it's not really efficient. You're not capable of updating an individual machine, and you cannot just mass deploy an update to all the machines you have out there.
Yeah.
And improve like every machine. So you need to have like one code base. You constantly can evolve the code base, improve it, and you can also constantly test the code base that it's still working. Of course, before you deploy an update. So this is really one key element, starting with engineering tools, and then also going into software-defined into virtual PLCs and edge devices, because if you want to push an update out to all of the machines, you need a platform to do it.
Yeah.
And this is, for example, Edge, where you can push out updates centrally to all the connected machines and devices, whenever you have a new software running on it.
Absolutely. So what you're saying is we should not deploy new code live on the floor. We should be doing something a little bit more efficient when it comes to edge devices. Yes. I love that. So let's dive more a little bit more on Thematic AX as a whole. That's something that you guys are pushing. What was some of the biggest demands and reasoning that companies were asking for this new software and solution?
So there were like multiple ways. So Tier Portal is great, and also what I heard from a customer is that Tier Portal is very intuitive, very good to use, and it really helps everybody to avoid making mistakes. But of course, in doing so, you also limit in a certain way what you can do with it. Mm-hmm. The openness, there is an openness in Tier Portal, but it's also limited. And what we can do with Thematic AX, it's all file-based. You can write your own scripts for almost everything, and if a functionality doesn't exist in Thematic AX, you can create your own functionality to do something.
Yeah.
So it's super flexible. It can be integrated into DevOps pipelines, and it's also web-based, has a Git integration, and it's really something that everybody coming out of university right now, and also my kids are now in university, where we all know how to deal with Studio.code and to write Python code or C++ code, mm-hmm. and all of that. So for them, it's even easier than for me. So I started coding when I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
But I didn't do so much in recent years with Studio.code, so compared to all of my kids coming out there, and they know exactly what to do and how to deal with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's incredible. You're just talking about young people learning code now. My daughter this year, mm-hmm. we went out and she's wrapping up first grade. And so she's going to be starting in second grade next year, so she can start doing some of the first Lego League competitions. Okay. So we have a little robot at home right now where she's learning the basic fundamentals of coding as a 7-year-old. Okay. And when you look at when these kids, this next generation who has learned coding through basic, an Arduino board or a propeller board, or a Raspberry Pi, or learning through Lego or some of the first competitions, you have a brand new generation learning on the latest and greatest way to program into code, and where even with Lego now, before you deploy it to the robot, you can have that program run virtually. in there, and it will show what the robot will do on a screen before you even then deploy it on the robot, right? So it'll say, hey, here's this robot in space. You can now see it on a screen. Drive forward, turn left, go up to this line, stop, and do all that. Well, now all of a sudden, she's realizing, hey, before I go to the robot, I pick up my robot, go to the table. Granted, in manufacturing, it's a lot more complex than what we're doing here, but now all of a sudden she can see, oh, I meant the robot to turn left, it turned right. Well, let me fix that before I go onto the actual floor and the play area map to do that.
Exactly.
And so when this next generation, who's used to using those type of tools, if they were to step in the manufacturing floor and companies aren't deploying that type of technology, not deploying these type of solutions, they're going to say, wait a second, I did this when I was in elementary school. Why are we on the manufacturing floor not using this type of technology on $1 million pieces of equipment, not a $200 Lego set?
This is awesome, because this is really the mindset we need, and this helps so much to speed everything up. So when I did my first so typically when I built my first projects in engineering, and you learn about the layout of a machine, when at one point in time we are finished building the machine, when you see the machine and when it looks different to what we told you it would look like. But when you have to adapt your program and when you start the testing around, and typically everything takes longer anyway. The only thing that stays is a deadline when a machine has to be finished. So I had to work a lot of long hours and weekends and so on to make sure we get the machines finished.
Yeah.
And here with this approach, while you build the machine, you also build your digital twin. And when you have already built the digital twin, you also start to build your code. You can create your code in parallel to the machine building, and you can optimize so many things, and when commissioning gets so much shorter and quicker, and also less stressful.
Yes.
Not sitting somewhere like at 11 at night and trying to fix stuff. Everybody else left, and you're the last one. Who tries to solve a problem.
Absolutely. Well, I think it reduces stress, and it reduces the unknown. If I can see, and I think that's why it's so important when you're looking at this new digital field and digital simulation of even going to a digital twin in some aspects of being able to see what you're doing before you do it. On the physical. It makes so much more sense, but also it allows me to be so much more efficient. And going back to the Lego story with my daughter, where if she can test everything out on her iPad, on her laptop, before she has to go grab the robot, plug it in, she could literally almost program the entire robot what it's going to do before she even begins to build and put wheels on a couple of motors. Exactly. And that's what's just so exciting about our industry is you can understand, am I designing this process the right way where it's actually going to hit my cycle time, it's going to be productivity, I'm reducing as much scrap and waste as possible. It's just it's reducing so many. It's creating awareness to the unknowns that you don't even realize are going to exist on the project, but you can see that in the digital world before it even hits the physical.
And optimizing cycle time is a good topic, because typically when you build your machine and when you commission a machine, so getting the machine run is one thing. So that's typically fairly quick. But when optimizing the cycle time down to the last tiny bit without suddenly crashing the machine or things colliding, all of these things, this sometimes takes a lot of time. And if you can do all of that up front, in a digital environment, this saves you so much time and money.
It goes back to, I remember this would have been, probably 10 years ago. So don't hold me, I'm quoting all the details, but we were on a manufacturing floor and there was like 5 or 6 different processes that you had all these operators staring around. It was a somewhat manual process. And they were always getting held up on one specific station. They finally determined where if they changed the order of operations and said, hey, we could do these 2 in parallel, and then I could go to that one, we could improve our efficiency by like 20% on the floor. You could determine that digitally by looking at everything. So you know what? It wouldn't take you 8 months to then determine what is the most efficient path in order to do this assembly in this process. They could have determined it within 30 minutes of running a simulation on a computer to say, you know what, we should change those 2 orders, put it over here instead of afterwards, and we're going to improve OEE right off the bat. Exactly. And all of a sudden, your ROI and your return on when you're deploying new technology, deploying automation, isn't pushed back an additional 8 months to finally see your rate of return. It happens 8 months sooner.
Yep. No, no, I fully agree. So this is so much better. And I think the next step that really helps us moving forward is like today maybe you have to create with digital twins and models, but now with all the Gen AI coming, that really helps basically to speed up you using the products like Plant Sim, for example, for plant simulation or process simulation. And on the one side, it makes it easier to use all these tools, and you can create your digital twin much faster. And at the same time, it also helps you kind of to find the optimal layout of a plant and what you build. Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, you have to use the tools today, and it maybe takes a little bit, but you gain so much by doing it, and that gets even faster and quicker because now Gen AI comes into all these products, and it's going to help you to even accelerate even more with it. Yeah?
So let's talk about Gen AI a little bit. What are you most excited about with, AI has made a big push since we talked last year in Vegas.
Yep.
What are you most excited about on how AI is impacting the factory automation space?
Now, I think there are multiple areas that are interesting. Let's start with the operations side. So what we saw from 2019 to today, where a lot of people in operations, a lot of operators retired. And so basically the average tenure went down from 20 years to roughly 3 years now. So people are less experienced at the machine. So if I can give them now an assistant that's at the machine with them and gives them ideas on what to improve, some recommendations.
Yeah.
So this is definitely helping for the operators, not replacing the operator, but giving the operators more confidence. And then also helping them making better decisions and running the machine better, just with all the knowledge in a database and a Gen AI from the last like 40 years about how to set parameters, how to optimize, and maybe also how to know, okay, when do you have to go into maintenance and how you can optimize. So I think this is definitely something, if you know you're alone or you only have a few people at the line running the line, to have these agents that help you and guide you and then help you to optimize the production, get more out of a production. So I think this is one big field. And the other one is really on the engineering side. So we also started now in Tier Portal, and it will also come to Somatic AX with a co-pilot for engineering or also for HMI screens. But you just say, hey, I need an HMI screen for this tech table, and then it automatically creates the whole.
It just generates it. So what would take hours beforehand to create an HMI screen and begin to plug everything together. It's unbelievable what we can do now. Where we say, hey, I have this button, this button, this button. I want this graph over this amount of time. I want these alerts to let me know when these tags could go bad. Throw in this logo in the top right-hand corner. And poof.
Just do it. Yeah.
It's incredible that it feels like a dream in a lot of senses. Still, it feels very much like that would be great, but it's not ready yet.
But it's coming. So I think yes, it's still in development, but I think we see in a lot of places that we get more and more functionality into these co-pilots to do a lot of these things. So we can create the HMI screens today. We also see basically in my new role now on the R&D side, we also see that the co-pilots year over year, they get better and better and more powerful, and you can do more with it, and we will see the same on the automation side.
Yeah.
And it really helps you to be more efficient. If you're a machine builder or a system integrator, or you just create your next project, you can do it faster, quicker. You can react quicker to changing market demands or customer demands. So that just helps and again makes your life easier. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we wrap up the conversation here, I have one last question for you. As you're spending more time here in the U.S. now, what is a new hobby that you have picked up that you've really enjoyed doing here? Because how many years have you been here for now?
It's 6 years now.
6 years now. What's been the biggest surprise for you? Now I would say kind of being a veteran in the U.S. for a while now. What have you really enjoyed picking up?
Oh, okay. Well, what I picked up as a private hobby is also pretty much at the beginning. I started wakeboarding.
Wakeboarding, okay.
So I for a long time I can do snowboarding. So and I started skiing I think when I was 5, snowboarding when I was 22. So when I came here, I was like, okay, let's do wakeboarding. And I have a couple of colleagues and friends with boats. I don't
Okay.
have my own
Yeah.
one. But this is something that I really picked up here and I enjoy a lot. Unfortunately, typically I don't have a lot of time to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
this is
what you
one.
need to do is you need to find a time to come to West Michigan
Okay.
and Grand Rapids, and we will go out on my cottage. I
Okay.
got a speedboat that's going to get you out of the water really
Okay.
fast.
Awesome. Yeah,
And do you have a wakeboard? I don't know if I have a wakeboard.
no, I'll find a way.
Okay, you get a wakeboard. You
Yeah,
come to Grand
okay.
Rapids this summer,
Yeah.
and we're going to get you out on the water.
Awesome. Let's do that.
Awesome.
Sounds
Appreciate
good.
it. Well, hey, appreciate
you,
your
Jay.
time.